Hey guys, Today Marine here again. I just actually finished doing the video about North Korea, and I was reminded of another video that I wanted to kind of go over. I was going to come up with a fancy deal to explain it, to show like freaking coughing a lot, to show different weapons, because I want to talk about semi-automatic rifles. And assault rifles and all this sort of shit, so that you guys, if you don't understand already, can know the difference between these different things. Because politicians, in my opinion, it's tough to trust them. The government, it's a whole other thing. I go on about the government all day. But anyway, I don't want you to necessarily believe what you hear on the news simply because politicians are saying it. And I don't want you to take that as scripture or rapture, whatever the hell the term is. I want you to actually understand the difference between these different sort of weapons, and so that you don't get drug in, or you can just explain to your family or friends, whoever may be against weapons, that you know exactly what the difference is between these things. A lot of damage going on here. Did he grab? Oh no, they only grabbed two of them. So basically, on the news, I'm sure you've seen where they're talking a lot about semi-automatic weapons, and they call them assault rifles, which isn't the right term, if I remember correctly. And I can still be wrong on this, but I know that AR, which is how they used to describe assault rifles, AR doesn't actually stand for assault rifle. If I remember correctly, it stands for company that originally came up with the prototype for it, which was for an AR, or which that sort of rifle anyway, which was Armalite. Oh, super! Got meleeed, and let's run back in. And Armalite made these weapons, and so the AR and Armalite is what the AR stands for. Just so you know, and I'm pretty sure I have the company right, but if not, and somebody knows, please correct me. I don't want to tab out to try to find it right now because I'm busy killing bad guys. But the nomenclature of assault rifles is stupid. For the simple fact, which I find amusing, is that when civilians own, according to the government, when civilians own, an AR-15 or some sort of variation of that, it's considered an assault rifle. They call it that. It's a terrible, bad thing. Everyone's gonna die if you own it. But when the police force or the military purchases them, like who was it? I want to say it was a DHS, Department of Homeland Security, but somebody just bought 7,500 ARs. But the term they use, since they're a government entity, is personal defense weapons, which I think is amusing. That is called this ain't gonna end well. That is called personal defense weapon when police or whatever have it, but not when civilians have it. I think it's funny. But anyway, a semi-automatic rifle, which what a lot of politicians are trying to ban, is a rifle that shoots once every time you pull a trigger. Trying to keep myself alive here. And try to heal these people. Sorry, people are idiots and died to trash in the trash being stuff that's not a boss, and these aren't bosses. Where was I? Oh yeah, so assault rifle, as they term it, but a semi-automatic rifle is a rifle that fires every time you pull a trigger. Son of a bitch, I'm just gonna wait. And for whatever reason, they're trying to ban ARs and stuff, and I know the reason is because that they can have a larger capacity for rounds, but they're just trying to get rid of semi-automatic rifles in general, which one goes against the Second Amendment, insanely against the Second Amendment, but then two, what these dipshits don't realize is that semi-automatic rifles are also, if you know what an M1 Garand is, if you played any sort of World War II game, that's a semi-automatic rifle. Most hunting rifles that aren't bolt action are semi-automatic rifles because you pull the trigger once. You pull the trigger once and one round comes out. That's all semi-automatic is. A weapon that's not a semi-automatic is, my wife's telling me to go to bed, is weapons that are bolt action or lever action, because it requires an additional action, I guess, outside of just point a trigger. So a bolt action, obviously you got to work the bolt once you have fired it once, and same with the lever action. You gotta bring the lever forward and back to chamber another round. And so those aren't considered semi-automatic rifles. But I mean, AR-15s are. There's a whole list of them. I mean, you can look it up. There's a ton of semi-automatic rifles. But an M1 Garand is, which has a capacity of 8 rounds. An M14 is, which has essentially an M1 Garand, but they modified it a bit. And that's what these people don't realize. They assume, and then they assume that all ARs are like fully automatic, which fully automatic weapons are already banned. Can't have them. And which I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, to be completely honest. I know this is kind of going to a bit of a rant, but you know, it's my video, so whatever. If you didn't know, and you can look this up and verify it through whatever source you want, the Second Amendment was not written like a lot of people would have you believe, a lot of politicians and everyone else would have you believe, that it was written for people to go hunting, so they can own, you know, a musket, which is what they had back in the day, so that they can go hunting and kill deer or whatever else they killed. And that's not the case. The Second Amendment was made to protect the citizens of the country against tyranny. The people would, back then, it just came from England, the majority of them, at least when the country first started, and they had been oppressed by the British. They had been, you know, just put down a lot. Just the government, you know, was very restrictive, it was very controlling, and they didn't like it. They didn't want it, so they started something new. So they made the Second Amendment so that all civilians could have weapons equal to what the military uses. And that's how it is what the military uses on a, you know, on a regular basis. So that the civilians could protect themselves against the government should the government take control of the military and try to use it against the civilians or the citizens to oppress them and do whatever else to them. And that was the whole point of the Second Amendment. And people make the argument that man, it sucks having to pay attention. People make the argument that, you know, they only meant muskets, you know, that was all people were intended to have. And obviously back then, no shit, muskets are what they had. They didn't have fucking M16s and whatever else. They didn't. Because obviously their technology wasn't as advanced as it is now. But the purpose of it was to ensure that civilians had weapons equal to the military, so if something happened, that they could defend themselves equally. I mean, imagine right now, I mean, I know it's far-fetched and chances are it won't happen, but imagine if the government decided to try to take over. If they just wanted to take over the country for whatever reason, and they were to fight against the U.S. citizens, they take over a chunk of the military, and all we were allowed to use were bolt-action rifles and shotguns, which is what a lot of politicians would have us, would be the only weapons that they would allow us to have. Imagine that. You have a bolt-action rifle, 1 round. If you're good with the weapon, you could probably get off. I mean, if you're really good with the weapon, you could probably get off 10 rounds a minute, 15 maybe. With a semi-automatic rifle, if you're good with it, you can get off double, if not triple that. Probably even more if you're really good with it. And I mean accurately. Anyone can just squeeze the trigger a bunch of times. I mean accurately where you actually hit somebody. And that's just, to me, that's crazy. And people are willing to give up that sort of right. I'm not saying that the government has any plans like that. I would certainly hope not. But it is there just in case, because if you've studied history at all, you'll know that essentially every country in the history of the world has had the government try to oppress their people at one time or another. It's just happened. It's what people do. People get power, and they get greedy, and they want more, and they're constantly trying to get more, and that's what happens. So that's what it's for, and people would take that away, and I don't know. To me, it's just ridiculous. Going back to fully automatic, the reason why I'm not necessarily comfortable not allowing civilians to have fully automatic is because, one, according to the Constitution, we're supposed to have what the military have. But two, I do get the reasoning, because someone takes a 50 cal and just goes around and does whatever, shit's gonna get real. How are people dying? They like pulling threat from the tank or something. Anyway, but machine guns aside, people that are ignorant about guns and don't know about weapons assume that every AR that people have are fully automatic, and that's not the case. They're semi-automatic. They shoot 1 round per trigger pull. What are these guys doing? Hell, even our rifles in the Marine Corps, at least, don't go fully automatic. The rifles don't. I'm sure there are some that do, but anyone who's ever used a rifle and is comfortable with that sort of thing and knows that sort of thing knows that fully automatic for a rifle is fucking stupid. The military does not condone it. They'll let you shoot it, in most cases, at least one, so that you could see just how horribly inaccurate it is. But trying to shoot an M4 or something at fully auto is just retarded. You're not going to kill what you try to kill. You're going to miss. It's a waste of ammo. There's no point to it. And so fully automatic doesn't get used. It just doesn't. The only time that you use a fully automatic weapon is when you're using a 50 caliber machine gun, or you're using like a 240 or a saw. And technically, I guess the Mark 19 could be considered fully automatic, because you just hold the trigger down and grenades come out. But those are the only time that you use those, and that's because those were specifically designed for that, and they have tripods or bipods to support them, to stabilize them, to make them accurate. And even then, you don't just hold down the trigger and pray. You'll generally do 3 to 7 round bursts to keep your fire accurate. You're not going to do this fucking crazy Chuck Norris, running in with the 240, just holding the trigger down. It's just not going to happen. If you want to live anyway, it's not going to happen. And I just want people to understand that. Technically, if we got rid of all semi-automatic weapons, like they want to do, a lot of them want to do anyway, you couldn't own a pistol, because revolvers are technically semi-automatic. Pretty much any pistol that has a clip, a little 8-round magazine or 13-round, whatever it is for your pistol, is considered semi-automatic, because you pull the trigger once and a round comes out. And I mean, I can go on about this all day. I really could. If you guys want to discuss this, feel free. I'll definitely go back and forth with you on it. But I just want to make very clear so that you understand the difference between all of this stuff, because I don't want people going around giving you false information, or you giving other people false information, because you don't know. in this way you can explain it to your family, because I'm sure you've all run into people who are against, who are against weapons. Whole ton of things people are against. But anyway, yeah, I just want to make clear so you guys know, so that there's no confusion what these sort of weapons are. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm decently knowledgeable, not as much as some, but I'm pretty knowledgeable on weapons and the Second Amendment and all that sort of stuff in general. So feel free to hit me up, as always. Facebook, message to YouTube, comments, whatever it is you want to do. Feel free to hit me up. I'll do my best to answer you guys. Yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. Like I said in the last video, I'll continue to try to do videos, but school and spending time with the family takes priority. So yeah. But appreciate you guys watching, and I will catch you guys later. Semper Fi.